Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Berges.
You can't miss the newest show, The Artist Perspective, sponsored by Art for Your Cause. To learn more about Art for Your Cause, go to artforyourcause.com. Art for Your Cause helps artists and charities by bringing artists and their work and charities together to be able to raise money for your favorite charities while still paying the artists for their work. To learn more about The Artist Perspective, go to theartistperspective.tv and watch our first episode featuring world-renowned photographer Jeremy Locke.
Hi, my name is Reginald Harvey, and I'm a wellness champion. I just published the medical memoir Anatomy of a Patient to inspire those affected directly or indirectly by a life-threatening diagnosis. Do you know or have a family member or dear friend who is suffering from catastrophic illness or debilitating disability? This is a conversation that few people are willing to have, and I want to have it with you. You can hear me on Live Your True Life Perspectives with Ashley Berges. For more information, go to reggieharvey.net.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Berges.
You can't miss the newest show, The Artist Perspective, sponsored by Art for Your Cause. To learn more about Art for Your Cause, go to artforyourcause.com. Art for Your Cause helps artists and charities by bringing artists and their work and charities together to be able to raise money for your favorite charities while still paying the artists for their work. To learn more about The Artist Perspective, go to theartistperspective.tv and watch our first episode featuring world-renowned photographer Jeremy Locke.
Hi, my name is Reginald Harvey, and I'm a wellness champion. I just published the medical memoir Anatomy of a Patient to inspire those affected directly or indirectly by a life-threatening diagnosis. Do you know or have a family member or dear friend who is suffering from catastrophic illness or debilitating disability. This is a conversation that few people are willing to have, and I want to have it with you. You can hear me on Live Your True Life Perspectives with Ashley Berges. For more information, go to reggieharvey.net.
Hi friends, Ashley Berges here live today. And today on our live show, we're going to be talking about gaslighting. We're going to actually talk about personal gaslighting, which is something that I have thought about probably in the last few years, something that I've worked on with clients to understand, because we have a tendency of catching other people gaslighting us, but we don't really realize when we're doing it to ourselves as well. I also want to talk about a little bit about that, and then a little bit about false hope. So we're going to be talking, false beliefs. So we're going to be talking about false beliefs and the concept of the personal gaslighting, because when we have other people in our life who are gaslighting us, or who have been manipulating us, or who have been trying to get control of us, or trying to make us feel a certain way, or think a certain way, or believe a certain thing, when we start getting into that, we start meshing into that, we begin to carry those beliefs with us. And I think a lot of us understand that some of this gaslighting probably started when we were children, dealing with it as we grew up as adults, dealing with it in toxic relationships, toxic marriages, the list goes on. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about how the combination of the gaslighting, the personal gaslighting, and the false beliefs, and how that leads us to normally having some real challenges in our life. And we don't realize how it can challenge us so much, because I like to give this example, and I know I've given it more often than not, and you might not have heard it, but you might have. It's like being in a fight, but the problem is that there's other people fighting you, but yet you're hitting yourself at the same time too. So when we're dealing with the situation, we're also beating ourselves down. Okay, and so I'm going to be talking about that. I want to talk a little bit in this first segment just about gaslighting itself. I'll talk about the personal gaslighting later on. We'll talk about the beliefs, and then definitely open up for Q&A at that time. So looking forward to hearing from y'all with some of your questions. I don't know how many we're going to get to today, being that we're running a little bit late, and I go back into session at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time, so we have a little less than an hour. So we're going to try to get to it as much as possible. Definitely ask those questions early, and we will get to those. Rodrigo is manning the computer, and we'll have those questions as well. So let's talk about gaslighting. Gaslighting is one of those things that I like to talk about as like persistent manipulation, persistent brainwashing over a period of time, using lies, using redundancy, using consistency, using control, and superficial kindness to get what you want, right? So I think many of you have probably, unfortunately, experienced this. And a lot of times when you probably did experience it for like the first 100 times, you didn't know what you were experiencing, right? I mean, you just didn't know because there was no name for it, right? You just thought, man, I'm really not winning this argument. Or you turn around and go, man, I think I'm losing it. Or maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one with the problem. I mean, it really does feel like it. And what happens is when we get into this blender of emotion, when we're dealing with manipulation and gaslighting, we begin to believe these negative things about ourselves that others are telling us, right? Because we hear it so much, because it's consistent, because we hear it, because it's because we believe the negative stuff about ourselves before we'll believe the positive stuff about ourselves, and that's a very interesting thing. And so to me, that goes back to our false belief systems that many of us had growing up, even beginning at young ages, and then we carry those false beliefs into our adult life. And I find it interesting because I do a lot of work with clients to really get into those false beliefs and understand them. And it's definitely not an affirmation type thing at all. Very far from that. I think believing and being positive is great, but again, you have to remember the fact, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, affirmations on top of other stuff, it's like chain smoking but being a vegan, right? It doesn't really make sense. Okay, you're a vegan, but you still chain smoke, so it doesn't make you healthy. So one thing doesn't cross out the other, right? Okay, so let's talk about gaslighting. So when we're dealing with somebody that's gaslighting us, it's a negative commentary. The manipulator, who is the gaslighter, creates these lies about the other person, in the fact that there's something wrong with them, there's something horrible about the person. And one of the examples that I like to use sometimes when I'm talking about gaslighting, especially when it comes to like a couple, it doesn't even have to be a married couple, but one person telling the other person about how the kids just hate you. You know what I mean? The kids can't stand you, they hate you. And one of the good examples that I've had is when people are out of a marriage and they're into another relationship and they're dealing with someone who might be struggling with a personality disorder. And one of the gaslighting manipulative tools that the gaslighter will use is to manipulate the other person to believe that their kids from the previous marriage really don't love them, really don't like them, really don't want them around. That's also a way for the other person to manipulate the other person to keep them around and to keep them, to basically control their domination around their children, because they don't want them to be around their children, so they want the person to think that the children don't love them. There's many versions of gaslighting that's out there. There's many situations, and I'm sure that many of you have gone through it, unfortunately. I have been a victim of it before, and I get it. And I don't feel like I'm a victim of it anymore because I know when it's happening now. Okay, so we can definitely leave the victim mentality and we can move into our reality, which is knowledge and power. And it feels a lot better to have knowledge and power, even though, you know, somebody might have hurt us in the past. At the same point in time, we have to gain that power. One of the things that I've realized about personal gaslighting and outside gaslighting is that consistency is key. So if I believe something, so if somebody's trying to get me to believe something negative about myself, right? And they say it over and over again enough, I'm going to start to believe that that's true because, you know, consistency and repetition. You know, remember how when you were in school and you were trying to learn, you know, language or even a foreign language, how the teacher would say, you know, have to be consistent, you have to repeat it over and over again, and consistency is key, and so you would remember it. So when something is being consistent and completely reminding you, you're going to remember that information a lot more than other information. And it's interesting how we are wired. You know, there's a lot of scientific studies talking about the wiring of the concept of that the negativity and how we have a tendency of believing the negativity over the positivity. And I think that's really powerful and valuable as well. And there's a lot of studies that are behind that. And I think it's fairly true because many of you out there, you believe the negative commentary over the positive. And the reason for that, this is the key. The reason for it is that you've been telling yourself that too because you don't believe the positive side of you. So when somebody gives you a compliment or somebody makes a comment about how great you are, you question the validity of that because you don't believe it. And so no matter what somebody else says, it doesn't matter when it's a positive thing like that. If you don't believe it, it cannot be true. And so that's based on our what? Our false beliefs of how we're not good enough. So when we return, we're talking more about gaslighting. We'll be talking more about personal gaslighting, and we'll talk about those false beliefs as well. So stay tuned, and me, Ashley Berges, will be back here in just 2 shakes.
Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you.
Hey there guys, Ashley Berges back today, and today we've been talking about personal gaslighting, and false beliefs.
And I think many of us have realized that we have been the victims in the past of gaslighting. And I think nowadays, with the content that's out there, the content I've been creating on this channel, the content that you've watched and read outside of this channel, and your ability to see a situation clearly, you're realizing the situation, you're aware of the gaslighting that's happening outside of you more often than not. So you're no longer the victim, but you're also easily able to see the situation that you didn't have an identification for or understanding of before. I know that once we get to see this and we understand what's happening, we can begin to safeguard ourselves. And if we use techniques and skills to understand where we stand and how to deal with it and how not to get really angry about it, and how to really transmute that anger and how to really make it work for yourself. Because there's ways of dealing with somebody that's gaslighting you, and then there's ways of not dealing with it. There's successful ways and non-successful ways. And so when I was talking earlier about personal gaslighting, it's very similar to the regular type of gaslighting that happens out externally. And a lot of times it's derived from being gaslit in the past, right? And it also can derive from false beliefs, because if I believe in my mind that I'm not good enough, or that I need to do X, Y, Z to be loved, right? I'm going to believe that. And so I'm going to walk into certain relationships based on that limited belief system. And then I'm going to tell myself subconsciously over and over again, this is the best I can do. And then I'm going to try to salvage the relationship no matter how horrible it is. And then I'm going to beat my head against the wall because it's not going to work, because I'm basing the fact on that I want to win this, or defining on, if I don't make this work, then I'm not good enough. So do you see how this type of belief system puts us into basically circular logic that holds no truth and allows us to gain no power? So if you think about it, it's very interesting, because the beliefs that we have, when they're based on this negativity, hold us back from all that we can be doing. I know for many of y'all today, unfortunately, we're doing an earlier show. Next week, we'll try to come back at the regular time that we've been doing it at. But, I do see clients, and I see private clients with, either in my office, FaceTime, phone, or Skype. And so, I like to work with folks one-on-one. And so I definitely cannot stop that. It's very important to work with clients and to be able to help people and to see their lives change. And that's what I love to do, is to see that amazing transition where we go from powerless to powerful. And it's a powerful situation because it's the one thing that very few people ever do in their life, right? Most people, live with lots of regret, and they get angry and upset, and they find unhappiness. And then what happens is later on down the line, they have a lot of resentment, they have a lot of sadness and fear, because they never really got to understand who they are, what makes them tick, right? They didn't understand their beliefs, their morals, any of that. And they never lived true to themselves. Instead, they lived to make everybody else happy. They lived to try not to rock the boat. They lived to try to give to other people because they believed that their value was derived on what other people thought about them, which just isn't true. But see how those thoughts go back to the gaslighting, that go back to our early belief system. And if we are gaslit to believe that we're not good enough, or we're not smart enough, or whatever it is, then that even encourages more of the false belief system to be more ingrained and etched in our whole being, which holds us back from doing the things we want to do in our life, right? I find that gaslighting is interesting because I feel that part of it, and the reason why it works so successfully, is because we're doing it to ourselves, right? So if I have a thought that I'm not good enough, and somebody's basically telling me that there's something wrong with me, I'm probably going to start believing that, right? Because I already feel like there's something wrong with me. And it's kind of like, it's kind of like tapping on that button, and it's starting to echo. And so it's almost like, you're saying it to yourself subconsciously, then somebody else is saying it to you. And it's very believable when two people are sharing the same thought. And that's why gaslighting works so much, is it's not something that comes completely out of the blue. So let me give you that example. Let's go back to the example that I offered in the very first segment. The concept of you're in an argument, there's some gaslighting going down, you've been divorced, you have children from a previous marriage, you're with somebody else, and that other person says, you know, basically your kids, they don't want to be around you. You know, they just deal with you. You know, they don't want to spend time with you. It's in your head that they actually care and want to spend time with you. They just do that to placate you. They don't do that because they love you. And so the reason for the manipulation is to make you feel bad, to make you question your value, question your reality, but also this person doesn't want you spending time with your kids from the previous marriage. And so they discredit them and make you feel like they don't care about you. And they make you feel stupid about being around the kids because they're basically saying, hey, the kids feel this way. You don't know it, but you know, you're making yourself look like a fool. You know what I'm saying? And so the reason why that works so well is the person's consistent because they're trying to drive that home. But the other reason why it works so well is that somewhere in the back of your head, somewhere in your subconscious or even in your conscious, you don't believe that you're a good parent. Or you don't believe that your kids love you, or you know, or you believe that you've done something wrong and you feel guilty about it where your kids would not want to be around you. So do you see how this kind of conjoins and creates that connection? So it's not so far out of the blue. It's not something that it's something that you actually somewhat have a belief system with. And so when somebody's gaslighting on you on that, it directly connects with you. When I return, I'll be talking more about the personal gaslighting and how that creates the false beliefs, and how those false beliefs lead us into these toxic relationships. So we have a little bit more to cover. If you have questions, I can answer those as well. And myself, Ashley Berges, will be back this time in 2 shakes.
You can't miss the newest show, The Artist Perspective, sponsored by Art for Your Cause. To learn more about Art for Your Cause, go to artforyourcause.com. Art for Your Cause helps artists and charities by bringing artists and their work and charities together to be able to raise money for your favorite charities while still paying the artists for their work. To learn more about The Artist Perspective, go to theartistperspective.tv and watch our first episode featuring world-renowned photographer Jeremy Locke.
Hey friends, Ashley Berges back, and today we've been talking about gaslighting, personal gaslighting, as well as false beliefs. I recently did a video that you can find, gaslighting and false hope, and you can find that in the recent videos. I think it was a few weeks ago. Very interesting video, very interesting content that you can really kind of derive a lot of knowledge from if you'd like to watch that after this live feed. And I appreciate everybody tuning in. I know our timing's a little different than the last few weeks. We'll probably go back to our original timing next week. But some folks had asked, you know, being in different countries, if we could do it a little earlier. So we were kind of going after that today. Also, if you want to learn a little bit more about me, you can always go to my website, ashleyberges.com, ashleyberges.com. And one of the things that I think about gaslighting is interesting is that it can do serious damage, especially when it goes undetected, right? And it's really a series of lies and manipulation, brainwashing, that sort of thing. And I think a lot of us are getting more clever to the fact of when it's happening to us from an outside perspective. And like I was saying right before the break, the reason why gaslighting works so well is that there's a part of us that believes the gaslighting to be real, right? So like the example I gave about the children, you know, you're out of your marriage, you're divorced, you have children from a previous marriage, you're dating someone else, that person doesn't really want you seeing your kids, has an issue with you spending so much with your time with your kids. All of a sudden, there's some conversation going on about how your kids don't really love you and they don't really care about you and they're really placating and they talk behind your back and they don't really trust you. And then, you know, you start, at the beginning you might have like balked about it, but eventually you kind of start falling into that because somewhere in your mind you feel guilty about the divorce, possibly. You feel guilty about some of the things that might have happened. Maybe you don't feel like you were the best mother or father. And so this really connects with us. And that's why gaslighting works, because if it was totally out of left field, right, you wouldn't believe it. But there's parts of it that you believe, and that's why it seems so real, and that's why it's easily digested, because you've already heard these thoughts in your own head. And that's why it works so well. So what happens here is that you have a combination of people. So if you're getting gaslit from the outside world and you're gaslighting yourself, you've already created these false beliefs, and these false beliefs keep you into these toxic relationships, right? So they're the belief system based on like the things that you feel like you can't have, or the things that you're lucky to have, or you don't feel like you're good enough or wise enough or smart enough, or you don't feel like you're pretty enough, or you feel like you have to do things for people to get them to like you. Okay, all of these things. And the sad part about it is that we begin to buy into that, but the belief system started a long time ago. Now, some of the beliefs could have started, let's say like you recently got a divorce a few years ago, and you have some negative beliefs about yourself. Perhaps, you know, your spouse asked for the divorce. You felt like it was kind of out of the middle of nowhere. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was something you didn't really want to necessarily see, or maybe they were doing something and you weren't aware of. And so, you know, it kind of jolted you into believing a lot of things. And a lot of times we can carry these beliefs of not being good enough, or nobody's going to love us, or we're never going to find the right person, or, you know, we're going to walk this world on our own alone. But a lot of the beliefs happen after obviously something of that magnitude happens, but it also happens to us when we're very young. Okay, so think about it, like these beliefs are very black and white. They're very extreme, right? So the false beliefs of I'm not good enough, okay? Now, let's just say that the I'm not good enough could have gone back all the way to the fact that, mom had you, and she took off, 2 years into, when you're 2 or 3 years old, and dad had to raise you, and she never came back. I mean, as a child, you feel like you actually caused it, or she left because you weren't a good enough kid, right? It had nothing to do with the fact that mom and dad didn't get along, or the fact that mother was dealing with some issues as far as some issues that she had to deal with, or that she was not a fit mother. None of those thoughts really come into your mind because you're too young. The only thing you can realize and recognize is the fact that, okay, there's 3 components here. There's me, my mom, and my dad. And it has to be a direct reason why she left, because it has to directly relate back to me. And see, that's where the black and white thinking comes from. And then I'm not good enough, I'm not valuable enough, I'm not worthy to even have a mother. You see what I'm saying? And so then that stuff carries in through our younger years, our adult years, into our marriages. And a lot of times that leads us to codependency. It leads us to a lot of different things. And we end up finding ourselves in these toxic relationships trying to hold on to them because we fear being left alone. We fear abandonment. You see what I'm saying? And it all goes back to the very beginning, abandonment, where we felt like we actually caused that to happen. Okay, and I really want you to think about this, because some beliefs started really, really young. Some started when we were somewhat, in elementary school, middle school. Some of them might have even started after your first divorce, if you had a divorce. And so there's a lot of things that come to play here. And when we create these false beliefs, what happens is in our minds, subconsciously and consciously, we kind of gaslight ourselves when we start thinking about that. And then what we do is we don't do probably what we should do, because we're questioning our own validity. And when we question our own validity, we actually get in the way of our own progress. So when we start questioning who we are, what we're doing, we get in the way of what we need to be doing because we're taking away from our value and we're questioning our validity, okay? And I want you to kind of start thinking about that right now. Is there some times in your life, or is it happening moment to moment, that you are doing personal gaslighting to yourself? It could be happening from the outside world, and that's definitely true. Whether it's your spouse, significant other, mother, father, sister, brother, friend, even coworker could be using gaslighting to manipulate you, okay, and to create this manipulation and to make you believe a certain thing about yourself so that they can use that and control you more. Okay, so that's definitely something I want you to think about there. Is there anybody in your life right now? Take an inventory and really, really think about this. And this might take a little bit of time. Is there anybody in your life right now that's really using that technique to control you? And the second thing that I want you to start thinking about is, are you using that technique on yourself based on these false beliefs that you've created as a young child, as a young adult, or even post-divorce? And these are things that I want you to think about, because once you start taking inventory of that, you have more control of your day-to-day life. You have more control of your life. You have more control of who you are, because you begin to understand yourself component by component, piece by piece, cell by cell, that most people never understand because they never take the time to do the inventory and they never take the time to look within themselves to see this. Most of us spend more time meeting somebody that we'll never speak to again and asking them more questions than we've ever asked ourselves, right? And it's sad because what we've done is we put ourselves on the back burner on these relationships, and later on down the road, if we are alone or we feel alone, we have nothing. It's almost like we can't even communicate with ourselves. It's like we're just sitting there on the couch, like just freaking out in a dark room because we feel as though we're alone. And the saddest thing is we should be our best friend. And I know that sounds really funky too, but nobody really tells you that, right? You're supposed to be your best friend, not in a narcissistic way, but in a, hey, I'm going to take care of myself type way. Because remember, this is the vehicle that we have to go from point A to point B. And we should actually get to take care of this vehicle and get to understand what's inside of this vehicle to do what we need to do. So when I return, I'll be answering some questions. I'll also be discussing more about personal gaslighting and things you can do to be aware of that, and really how to take that inventory and get right with yourself. So stay tuned, because Ashley Berges here. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Hey there, friends. I'm glad you're catching the live broadcast of Live Your True Life Perspectives. I've created my very own Patreon page. You can go to Patreon and you can check out my page. The link is right here. It's an amazing platform because I'm able to offer more stuff there, different stuff than I am on the Live Your True Life program, as well as on my YouTube channel. You've probably seen my YouTube channel. We put up new video content every week. And we have a lot of great content on there. But on the Patreon page, I'm able to go a step further. I'm offering group coaching sessions, private coaching sessions, as well as access to exclusive content, like the Celebrity Perspective Season 1. I won a Telly Award for that this year. You can watch all episodes right here on Patreon. I'm offering you the exclusive chance to come on the radio with me, to be live on Live Your True Life Perspectives, nationally syndicated radio show, to talk about yourself, to talk about your amazing life, and to inspire the Live Your True Life listeners. When you become a member of my Patreon page, you are directly supporting me to help other people to live their true life. I look forward to seeing you on Patreon. Let's inspire one another.
Hey guys, welcome back. Ashley Berges here. Great to have you live with us. We had a couple of hiccups in the very beginning, so we had to restart the feed. So I know some folks out there are saying that they didn't get the heads up that we were going to have the show, and so we apologize for that. We don't know how or why that happened, but we will make sure that we don't repeat it next week. So we're good. We've been talking about personal gaslighting, and false beliefs. And, the reason why gaslighting from the outside source connects with us so much is based on the fact that we actually believe some of it prior to they tell us it. So basically, they're saying something that we already somewhat believe. Like I gave the example about the children from the previous marriage. You believe you have guilt and shame about the previous divorce, and so you feel like your kids don't like you. And so when the gaslighter from the outside world says, your kids are just placating you, they don't want to be around you, you begin to start feeling that as the truth, right? And, it's a really sad state of affairs because you start to believe it, and then you start taking that on as your own reality. Okay, many of you might have been in gaslighting situations, manipulation situations as children. Many of you were raised by narcissists. Many of you were raised by people that did not take care of you. You were kind of a second thought. And unfortunately, that's just not the way you raise children, but it happens all the time. Okay, people have been abused, neglected, and the list goes on. So let's answer some questions right now. Rodrigo, you said that Miss Mika, what did she ask?
She said, my narc gaslighted me for, I believe, 28 years.
28 years of gaslighting, wow.
Says, now I think he gaslighted our kids by telling them I am the one who is gaslighting them.
Okay.
Is that possible?
Okay, so Ms. Mika asks, she says she's been married for 28 years. Thank you, by the way, for asking the question, and thanks for following the channel and by being a part of this village. It takes a village, by being a part of this community. And she asked, she's been married for 28 years. Husband was gaslighting her, and the husband has turned the tables and has tried to manipulate the situation by telling the kids that she was actually doing the gaslighting, not him. Yeah, that's possible. I mean, think about it. If you're wanting to play the game and you want to now get the kids on your side, yeah, that's a way of manipulation. And it's sad. I'm hoping that the children aren't going to believe this type of manipulation. But if somebody is really good at manipulation and there's enough question, you see, remember, there always has to be this question. There always has to be this ability. There's always got to be an open door somewhere in someone's mind to have just that glimpse of question and then to offer that solution. But I'll say one more thing, Ms. Mika. It's interesting because I've been gaslit by a family member before. And some of the stuff that they were presenting, some of the stuff she was presenting wasn't even reality. And I almost bought into it. Because, and I knew it wasn't reality, and it was funny, it was weird, and then I almost bought into it until I asked another woman in my life, could you look at this? And I asked my mother, I said, could you check this out? And she's like, this is crazy, but I had to get a backup for it. So it's not about I feel bad because I don't feel smart enough because I got gaslit. The reason why you don't see it is it's not about being smart to catch it or not catch it. It's about the fact that you're not expecting it from somebody that supposedly cares about you. So it's very true. There's only certain ways to safeguard against that. It's about actually communicating with your kids and having those conversations. And, if there is any proof that you can show as well to the past, but I feel like it's basically based on your own word and merit. And if they're going to believe that, it might be painful at first. You definitely have a say in it. You should definitely, stand up for yourself. But at the same time, I would hope that they could see the truth behind that. And I wish you good luck with that, because that can be a very painful position, as well as spending those years with somebody that was really using manipulation instead of caring for you. And I know that can lead to a lot of regret. And so getting right with that is really important for you. And that means by really finding yourself and really taking the time to understand yourself and getting that right before moving any farther ahead. Because, time is of the essence for all of us. We don't know the timing. But I do know that the quicker we can be happy and the quicker we can find unconditional love, which is the reason why we have happiness and joy for ourselves, is profound. Next question, Rodrigo.
The next question is from David Ortiz. It says, what can I do to return my energy and motivation after breaking up with a love bomber? I'm working out and eating healthy. She deleted her social media, and he's not going to follow her. It's the third time she did this.
Okay, so David Ortiz, what can you do to get your energy back?
Your energy and motivation after breaking up with a love bomber.
Okay. And how long have they been broken up for?
He didn't say.
Okay, energy and motivation. Well, okay, the biggest question, the biggest thing you have to think about is the reason why we got in the love bombing and we accepted it is because it felt good and we wanted the attention, right? And it felt good that somebody was like giving us all this, well, attention, which is not love, but it's attention, right? And so we have to look at it and say, you know, obviously there's some place within you that you were not getting attention. There was something within you, maybe it started at an early age, that you weren't getting the attention from family members or friends, and so you needed this outlet, and that's why we fall for it, right? Because it feels really good, because we're getting attention, we're getting what we think is love, even though it's not love, it's false love, and so we have to get the motivation back to actually begin to find that happiness within ourselves, because love bombing is very addictive. Okay, it's like any drug, because it's extreme and there's drama involved. Okay, so like any drug out there, we have to get real with it, and we have to realize that that high of being on the pedestal, and then the low of not being on the pedestal, and then the discard phase, and then getting back on the pedestal again, and then that low again, and then the discard phase, and the pedestal. So you see how the cycle is very addictive, because you're looking to get back on the pedestal stage, and there's got to be a lot of, honestly, it's willpower. And it's like looking at it and saying, hey, I know I felt this way, but it was a false sense of reality. And it's kind of looking at it and understanding and beginning to give yourself that love and get to know yourself. So working out is great, taking care of yourself, eating well, getting to know yourself. Like I talk about, like dating yourself, being yourself's best friend. Really spending time with you and not just ignoring you and saying, oh, I'm just going to date someone else, I'm just going to jump to the next relationship. No. It's time to really focus on you and say, what is it that I want? What is it that I need? Why was I so hungry for that attention? Okay, because obviously you're not giving yourself enough attention or seeing yourself for who you are, but also you have probably dealt with past experiences like this as well. So stepping back, working out, taking care of yourself, getting to know yourself. You know, I have a book out there called The 10-Day Challenge to Live Your True Life that walks right through all these steps. You know, it starts with understanding boundaries, but see, boundaries are based on what? Values, morals, and ethics. It's not just like, oh, I don't agree with what you did. You have to know why you don't agree with what somebody did or why you don't agree with what somebody said, and then you can't keep going with it. Once we know the red flags, and then we go through, you know, the expectations overrated, unconditional love, and the list goes on. But once we understand the red flags and we understand why we're connected with that type of energy and why we get like connected to it, then we're able to actually push back emotionally and be able to see those cards and understand how to understand our beliefs and how those beliefs set us on the path of being with a love bomber. Next question. A great question, by the way. Thank you. Rodrigo, next question.
It's from DOC Healing Through Diamond Painting. It says, just divorced the narcissist after 17 years. What can I do to get past the loneliness, ruminating so much? I don't question divorcing at all, but seem to be thinking quite a bit.
How long divorce?
17 years.
Okay.
No, after 17 years.
Okay, just got divorced from a narcissist after 17 years.
Yes, what can I do to get past the loneliness, ruminating so much?
Okay, well, you know, the first thing that you can do to get past the loneliness is start to look toward yourself. You've been married to a narcissist for 17 years. You've never once thought about you. Okay? It's always been about them. You don't have an identity. You have to find that identity. You have to create yourself. You have to resurrect yourself. You have to find, you know, when we stay with a narcissist for 17 years, you completely lose your identity. Because you really can't have one because they suck up all the air in the room. So right now it's about who are you? What do you stand for? Okay? And it's about getting to know you. And I'm serious. This is the time where there's serious personal boot camp. Okay? And that's something I specialize in, is that I help people really get to understand what it is inside of them that makes them tick. Because see, there was a reason why you connected with that narcissist in the first place. And so we as codependents, when we are codependent and we connect with a narcissist, we connect for many reasons, but we want to be loved. And that attention that they're giving us, we feel like that is love, right? We've also probably been around that energy when we were growing up. And unfortunately, if we were brought around that energy as we were growing up, again, we did things to impress on our parents who we were. Oh, we got good grades, or we we got made the cheerleading crew, or we made the debate team, or whatever that was. I was on debate, so I had to add that in. But anyway, we did those things and we won the tournaments, or we did whatever to impress our parents, right? And especially if they are narcissists, the only time that they really gave us credit was when we did win and make them look good. Okay, so if we follow that same graduation of thought into the marriage, and we're with a narcissist, and the narcissist is all about themselves, and it's about, they would show you off when you look great, or they'd show you off when you did something great, right? But otherwise there wasn't. And so you started like trying to figure out, what hoop do I jump through, but you've never actually thought about yourself. So now it's a timeout period, and the reason why you're thinking about and ruminating about it is because your mind is trying to get in the way of you doing the personal work. It's trying to overrun that and say, well, you might have missed out on something, or maybe you should have gotten back with it. It's trying to bring the past back into the present, which is not going to be good. And it wants to do that to stifle you from actually working on you. Because when we actually work on us and we take the time to get to know ourselves and we understand what we stand for and we start standing up for ourselves and we start having power, the universe has to change for us. It can no longer be status quo. I hope this has helped, and I have a lot more information on that too. I should do some live shows on that as well. But let me know if that helps, and I look forward to hearing from you again. Thank you for the great question. Yeah, I really think that, that can really help us to really get to that next level, and I really, really love that question. I only have a couple or more minutes, so I just wanted to just kind of state for the record. When we don't really get to know ourselves, when we find ourselves in these toxic relationships, and then years after, when we finally get out of the toxic relationship, we're kind of left there holding the bag of emptiness because we never explored ourselves. We kept giving and giving and giving, right? But we never gave to ourselves. And I know that sounds weird because we've always been taught that we're supposed to go outside and meet people. We're supposed to hang out. We're supposed to be social. You got to go outside. But we've never been taught about the value that we have within. We've never been taught about the value of ourself. Very few people have. And that's sad. But the reason why we haven't been taught is because very few people that were our parents knew that. Because they didn't respect themselves either. They didn't love themselves. They didn't care about themselves. They were just a vessel to make other people happy, or they were there to, not rock the boat. You see what I'm saying? So most of us are kind of living in this lifestyle of codependency with the inability to really understand ourselves. And when we find ourselves scared or alone, we want to go back to a relationship that was safe, even though it was toxic. And so we have to look at it and say, why am I connected to this toxicity? Why am I on this circuitry of toxicity? And what can I do to let go of that? And that means the only way to let go of that is to see your personal value. But the only way to see your personal value, you see, is you got to do the other stuff first. And, that's why I wrote that book, The 10-Day Challenge, is that I can't just sit there and tell you, just see your personal value, wake up and love yourself unconditionally. Okay, I mean, that's a mouth load, and that's a lot of stuff to do. And, quite honestly, that would take a while to just process how to do it. But I've come up with the process. And it begins with understanding why you tick and who you are, like you're a character. And I help you understand exactly how to walk through that. And then that gives you the concept, the construct, and the understanding and organization to really see yourself for who you are as you do your friends and other people that you really enjoy being around with. You're supposed to feel that way about you as a person, not just everybody in the outside world. You're not just getting dressed and putting makeup on to hang out with people in the outside world. You should be taking care of yourself because you actually really care about who you are and this vessel that you're living in. And I know that sounds interesting, but what I'm saying here is that once you begin to start examining that information, and this channel is full of information to do that. My book, The 10-Day Challenge to Live Your True Life, is the radio show, Live Your True Life Perspectives. And if you're interested in that show as well, it's a syndicated radio show out of USA Radio Network. And you can always go to ashleyberges.com and click on that contact page. If you'd like your radio station to air that show and to be able to get it the satellite, we can reach out to them, your local stations as well. But the whole parameter is all about finding you, cultivating you, understanding you, then standing up for yourself, and then once you stand up for yourself, then continue to keep doing it, and then you find the power within to actually see the true reality of who you are. But we can't race it, we can't move past it faster than that, and that's where we're at. So when we're talking about personal gaslighting and that false beliefs, we have to get to the bottom of how often are we gaslighting ourselves how often are other people gaslighting us? We need to take a tally of that information and really write that down and see it for what it is. And then we need to realize what are some of those negative false beliefs that we're holding on to that keep us in a parameter and a lifestyle that we are not happy with and does not contribute to our highest good. I hope this show has helped. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share it with your friends and family and folks that you really care about, that you want to help out, because they will enjoy this information, especially if they're going through tough times or they're in a toxic relationship, or they just need a boost, because quality content that's direct and honest is something that people can benefit from, and that's what I create, and that's what I care about. And I care about you as well. So please like the video if you like it, share it with folks, and then also comment in the section. Let us know what you think about it. Also, about timing. I'm interested in knowing a little bit about better timing, where we should time the show at, where we should put it at on these Tuesdays. And I want to get feedback from y'all. So if you can, please help me to understand the time for the live show that you think would be best. And what I could do is we could put it in that time all the time, and I just will not set a therapy class. I won't set a therapy or coaching session at that time. We can actually set it at that time and set it consistently. So I'd love to have your feedback on that, because I want to have the most people being able to watch live and comment and ask questions, and I look forward to that. So thank you so much for your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you, and we'll have another live show on Tuesday. Also, new video content coming out later this week as well. The last video that just came out was about love bombing, so check that out if you haven't seen it already. And I look forward to hearing your perspective as always in the comment section, and I look forward to answering them and commenting back. Thank you so much. Ashley Berges signing off today. Don't forget to live your true life, and I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.